Okay, we'll go ahead and get started with the October Tennessee Technology Corridor Development Authority meeting. I believe we have a quorum today, so we'll move on to item number 2, the approval of last month's minutes. You would have gotten those last week. Hopefully everybody's taken a look at those.
So moved.
So we have a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we'll go to applications for certificates of appropriateness. The first one is Signs and Such is 10-A-23-TO5. Is it 5 or S? S, TOS. So if I can get a staff report, please.
Okay, this is a request for a approval of a building sign for a new business at the existing strip center at Greenland Way and Spring Bluff Way. The proposed building sign includes the business name for Glow Up with D & Company and the logo. The sign will be located above the awning on the front of the business facade for identification. The new sign consists of an LED internally illuminated channel cabinet for the logo and channel letters mounted on the building via a raceway. Glow Up is internally lit with LEDs and translucent matte faces. With D & Company is non-illuminated aluminum with cut black vinyl. The sign compromises of an area of 21.9 square feet, which is within the limits allowed for the business based on the 24 feet 6 inches of building frontage. The sign is similar in size, location, and materials to the others in the strip center. Based on the plans, the staff is recommending approval for the certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you very much. So any questions for staff? All right, any other discussion? Is there an applicant here? Nope, no applicant. All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
A second.
We have motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to the next certificate of appropriateness, and it's Scott Smith, Green River Holdings, 10-A-23-TOG. If I could get a staff report, please.
Sure. This is a request for a grading plan for a 4-acre parcel at the northeast terminus of Data Lane. It is off the southwestern end of Corridor Park Boulevard, which consists mostly of office warehouse developments, and it abuts single-family residential lots in a subdivision to the rear. Property is zoned BP and TO, which is Business and Technology Park. And you can see here contextually that's where the residences are located along their back. Actually, let me turn my laser pointer. There we go. So residential development along the rear. This is Corridor Park Boulevard. And then there's some existing office warehouses uses along here, and then further up Corridor Park Boulevard to the northeast. This is a street view showing kind of when you're approaching the site from Data Lane, and then the site plans are here. So the project has received a notice of violation from Knox County Codes for grading without a permit. The county has said they will remain under this notice until they obtain all applicable approvals, and so they are coming before this body to get the COA today. So in terms of conformity with the proposal, so the limits of disturbance aren't necessarily located on the plans, but you can see the grading here, and it's proposed. Again, have that notice of violation for grading without a permit, and that's not in conformance with Ttcda guidelines. So we'll go into that a little bit. So section 1.2.3 of the guidelines states that, except for purposes of surveying and core drilling to gather geologic and soil data and to allow for minimum road access, property in the technology overlay shall not be disturbed prior to the issuance of a certificate of appropriate for grading or building and any other permit that may be required by the city or county regarding the disturbance and or restoration of land. Land disturbance is defined as including any grading or vegetation removal. And then section .1.2.1 states that grading and site preparation should be kept to a minimum during the development process. And then finally, section 1.5.a states that new landscaping should be used in addition to any preserved vegetation to buffer residential development from any new non-residential development. The existing dense vegetation along the northern property line should be preserved as much as possible. Planning recommends a 25-foot non-disturb area or other dense landscaping in lieu of preservation in specific areas if landscaping cannot be preserved. So it could be some sort of combination of, landscape screen that gets planted and preservation of what's existing if there's not a space to be able to preserve some, or if there's been grading that's already occurred. In terms of conformity with the Knox County minimum subdivision regulations and either the Knoxville zoning ordinance or the Knox County zoning ordinance as appropriate, again, this property zone PPTO. The Knox County zoning ordinance does have a supplementary regulations section that regards landscaping, and it states that there's a minimum of 15-foot depth, and it's called a Type A dense landscaping screen. That's what's required between commercial or industrial properties and residential. So in this case, we look at what the county's zoning ordinance requires, and it has the same standard applied to commercial and industrial development, whereas commercial and industrial development don't really have the same impacts on a residential property. Commercial uses tend to not have, semi-trucks that are servicing them, and so the noise is a little bit lower, fumes are a little bit lower, those sort of things. And so that's the reason that staff has started recommending approval of a 25-foot wide buffer strip instead of a 15-foot buffer strip, is to accommodate that difference in the impacts and the uses. We did have a project that came before this board, I think it was last year. It was actually the second item on this agenda. And following that item, we had a lot of people calling that were very upset about it. We had just people that were kind of concerned about the impact of these type of developments along Corridor Park Boulevard. And so in light of that, that's the reason for the 25 feet that we're recommending. So with that, I guess that's, maybe the applicant is here to make their comments. That's all. Sorry, one more slide. This one's talking about, so you can kind of see what the landscaping requirement is for the county, that Type A screen. So it's one of two options. The first is to offset rows of evergreen trees with a row of shrubs on the outside. That's what you see on the left-hand side of the screen. And on the right is option 2, which is 2 offset rows of evergreen trees with branches touching the ground. And so if you choose to just go with the trees, then they're planted at 12-foot centers, trunk to trunk. And if you go with the combination of trees and bushes, then it's a 16-foot center for the trees and a 4-foot center for the bushes. And so with that, we'll open it up to the applicant to make their comments. Or I guess that's.
Any questions for Michelle at this point? Okay. Whoever is representing the applicant, please give us your name and your address, please.
Yes. Taylor Forster, 1111 North Shore Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. Here on behalf of the applicant. In response to the staff recommendation, obviously we're here requesting certificate of appropriateness for a grading permit. For this property, we're requesting that this board follow the landscape guidelines that are set forth and enumerated within Knox County ordinances. And those prescribe 15-foot or identify the 15-foot minimum landscape buffer requirement. That ordinance contemplates this exact situation where you have an industrial use that's adjacent to a residential use. With that, it prescribes a minimum of 15 feet, not 25. Our position would be that the 25-foot requirement would be an arbitrary requirement, that doesn't follow in line with the ordinance. What's already required here is the setback requirement on the building is 70 feet from this boundary line. So any building or any improvements, vertical improvements, are going to be more than 70 feet or more away from this boundary as well. As far as the landscape screen, we'd be requesting the combination of the evergreens and the evergreen bushes or shrubs that staff had mentioned on the installation of any landscape screening that would be required to be replaced. Yep. I guess that's all.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Ms. Frazier?
Thank you, Chairman, I guess. We haven't gotten that far yet, though, have we? Wanted to just hit on the notice of violation. We have new microphones, so you're just gonna have to
I was trying to push it further away.
bear with us, bear with us. Just want to make sure that we're not in the habit of asking for forgiveness before we ask for permission with the grading permit.
I'm Scott Smith, 405 Montbrook Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee. The adjacent track is 10 acres, and we had ground up trees. We were fully permitted, everything. And we hired a guy to come pick up all that mulch and haul it off, because it's very hard to get rid of the mulch, if you believe that right now. And when he was there, he inadvertently pushed some trees over on the other side and started pulling them down there and grinding them. We didn't move any dirt, but when a root ball rolls over, it's considered grading. So he wasn't in there moving dirt, but he did knock some trees over, root ball rolled over, and the neighbors called.
Okay.
And that resulted in a notice of violation.
Okay.
You knock the trees over at your request or accidentally?
No, he was just trying to clear all the debris from the 10-acre site, and this happens to be directly adjacent. So we had him stop doing that, and so he hasn't done anything since. And the one thing I would point out on this is that the elevation difference between the residences, probably, gosh, I hate to guess, but it's 50 feet difference. So they actually look over the top of our property. And we'll do whatever landscape buffer you'd like. I'd like to do the smaller one, but I was thinking the trees and the shrubs might be better because they do have nice views there. They won't even see our buildings. They're so much higher, but one thing to kind of consider.
Right. I mean, I do agree with staff. I like the recommendation of a 25-foot vegetative buffer just because it is abutting up with the residential homes. So I will be supporting staff recommendation.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 25 feet would also not just help with view, but smells and that type of thing, that a little bit more density might be better.
Yeah, our preference for the reason for the recommendation is to preserve that existing dense vegetation that you can see on here. It's denser than what the 15-foot type A landscape screen is. So yeah, that was the whole point, was to have it kind of mitigate some of the fumes and noise.
Do we know how wide that current dense vegetation is?
Right now, it's the entire property, so this
it's
is
the
the one that
entire lot.
hasn't been graded yet. So I'm not, so
Gotcha.
it's whatever we would determine here at this
I-
board.
I couldn't tell from whether,
Oh, gotcha.
which one.
Would you be agreeable to maintaining or preserving that vegetation rather than
I don't
Having
think it's a
to-
good idea. I mean, it's pine trees.
pine? Okay.
And in all honesty, it's on our side of the line. So when these trees fall, somebody's gonna have to find a way up that slope to remove them. And it's really not an ideal situation for that. I mean, they're not quality trees.
So I would agree with the applicant on not leaving the trees right now. This is going to be a cut slope based on the grading plan, and anytime you cut close to existing vegetation, it will die. So it's better to go ahead and grade and come back later on and after the grading's complete and plant something new.
I have a question for staff, being new on the board. It sounds like it has been done in the past, this 25 feet instead of 15 feet, that the technology corridor does have a little bit higher line to jump over. Am I correct in that, or?
So we have had a couple of cases that have come through along Corridor Park Boulevard in the past year that we have recommended that 25 feet for. The guidelines are, they do require some sort of landscape buffering between incompatible uses, but it doesn't really have a specific standard to follow. So if there's not a specific standard to follow within the guidelines, I think that falls to this board to kind of figure out, okay, what is this saying? So again, that's what staff's contending, is that 15-foot buffer that's required by the county, that's a minimum. And so I think that because it's an industrial use within an overlay zone, that this board has the authority to recommend a little higher.
Are there any of the folks that live on those houses here tonight?
They are not, but they are some of the folks that called and complained about grading on the adjacent property.
ask a question?
Sure.
On the 25-foot versus a 15 feet, I'm sorry, does that mean, is there any more trees in a 25-foot buffer versus a 15-foot buffer?
Well, I think the 25 feet was when we were thinking it was going to be preservation of that existing because it was more dense and kind of packed in there, that would help to kind of mitigate that fume
Okay.
visual situation. So, again, that's.
I mean, to me, part of the 25 feet is going to be running down a hill. I mean, I don't think that it's going to be very purposeful, but that's whatever.
I think that's my only question too, is looking at the screening, increasing the depth doesn't necessarily mean I'm planting more things. It's just, that's not how this reads. So I'm struggling too with how, if we say that they've got to increase the depth, I'm struggling with what other requirements we're going to place on them. Does that mean more trees, more shrubs, and how much?
And I think that's where a landscape plan would be beneficial. So if we're not going to recommend it to keep that existing vegetated buffer at 25 feet, and we were going to require, a 15-foot or some other variation of that, then we would probably want to see like, okay, what kind of tree are you planting and where would it be, that sort of thing. Usually, whenever we're issuing a COA, we have a landscape plan in front of us that we could kind of look at. And I don't anticipate that would be a big ask for a landscaping plan, just showing that those double rows of trees and the bushes, something for us to approve administratively, saying, yes, this does meet that, in order for the county to have something to look at when they go for permitting.
So,
We required to do that as well?
Yeah, we
I thought so,
usually, we
yeah.
usually require landscape plans to be part of the initial package for this, whenever it comes in. But I think because we were recommending that vegetated buffer, we didn't, reach out to get the landscaping plans. So if this body is so inclined to go with that type B dense landscaping, I think we would want to at least see what kind of trees you are proposing and have those on a landscape plan that can be stamped as part of that approval. Because whenever we're looking at giving you guys, this is what you need to take for permitting, we're giving you stamped plans and a COA, so.
Would that be administratively? Okay.
So that is something administratively we can vote.
In the past, this body has said that, that landscape plans can come to staff and we can look at them for those minimum qualifications, those minimum requirements. And if they do meet that, then we could approve it. If it doesn't meet that, then we'd be like, ooh, probably make it come to you guys. So as long as it meets that, then that's something you guys could maybe turn in on Monday afternoon. We're like, yeah, that meets it. Boom, here's your COA and here's your landscape plans.
So I guess my question on that is we have all these different types of landscape screening plans that have been approved by the county? Like type A, type B?
Oh, those don't come, so that's, I'm not sure what their process is when they're looking at that, but feasibly, they do have some means of looking at that, yes. I can tell you that whenever they get plans that don't meet what this board approves, they're contacting planning to figure out what's going on with it. So for us to give you a set of stamped plans that don't have the trees on there, it kind of looks like there's no trees required. So that's the only reason that I'm saying we would want to see landscaping plans having those trees with the bushes.
It's my understanding when we come back for a building permit and we submit plans for our building, we'll be doing a landscape plan then, right?
Yes.
So that's part of it at that stage. I don't know that, does it
Yeah,
make sense?
that's a good point. You guys could make a condition of approval that it's.
Well, we can't move forward without that. So
Right.
we're going to be doing a landscape plan regardless, but I just don't know that it makes a lot of sense to do it now.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm okay with the condition that we put a landscape screen back along that property boundary. And I would prefer, I think 15 feet makes more sense, but when we start our building, we will be submitting a full landscape package that will incorporate the front, the sides, the building, the parking, everything. And I think it makes more sense to do it then.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So as far as it stands right now, you guys have, the county's giving you notification that you had to stop grading.
We were waiting on this meeting, yeah.
Okay, so the intent is for you to start grading again after we go through the process.
Well, to be clear, we are grading next door on the 10-acre site, which you'll hear next. This site, we have not started grading at all, and we would like to. So we can't get a grading permit for this site without your blessing, without your approval. So that's what we're doing.
So are we talking about having this landscape plan to protect the neighbors from the grading process? Or is this the ultimate, this is what it's going to be when the building is built?
It would come after, well, and
It's a long-term solution, not a short-term solution.
But my question is are we requiring the long-term solution now? Okay.
No, I think, yeah, I would agree with what the applicant stated, that it would be part of the building. I'm just used to this process being about the building and site plans. So yeah, I think that you guys could make a recommendation to, if you are inclined to go with the 15 feet, that they, you could make that subject to the condition that they install the type A dense landscaping buffer per the ordinance. And then, whenever it comes back, it would have to meet that condition to get the COA for the site plans, landscaping plans, building plans.
is there any fear that the building wouldn't actually happen for some reason or another, and then the screening for the residents never occurs because we're making it conditional on the building, not conditional on the grading?
He would have to have a bond in place with the county in order to grade it to guarantee the completion.
So then it would be covered no matter what. Okay.
And I'd also state that anybody who bought the property in the future would have their plans come to the Ttcda as well, and those would be subject to the Ttcda guidelines, including the landscaping and also the county's 15-foot buffer. So even if they sold the property and someone else bought it, that person would be on the hook for the same requirements that these guys are, so.
So I guess considering the order of process with us coming back with full building plans for building permit, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, Michelle, but it seems to any buffering requirements be addressed at that meeting once we get to that phase instead of the grading.
Yeah, I think we're just establishing the condition for whatever you guys are going to submit with your site plan, whether that's going to be staff's recommendation or what you guys are requesting.
But I guess I'm saying we'd have to come, we're gonna have to come back for the full review and submit all of the building plans, the landscape plans that then show, and then we're gonna have another recommendation from staff as to what all is required.
Yeah, so to his point, my question is why would we not postpone any vote related to this until they come back for the building permit? Because that's when the buffer actually,
Oh, you mean the landscaping part?
correct.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that.
Because they don't, I guess that's my whole question from an applicant standpoint. At this point in time, if the buffer, we've got to go through that whole process with the landscape buffer, it would come back in 30 days, 60 days, 90, I'm not, don't know what your schedule is. But that way, on this one, we can, I don't know if we deny this,
So if you don't want to go with, I guess what I'm hearing is that you guys want to wait until the rest of the package comes in to vote on the landscaping, then you would just vote to recommend the plans as submitted instead of recommending to approve per staff's recommendation. Is that what you're
Which
asking?
gets back
I
to
don't know if I'm getting, if I'm
which gets back
understanding.
to my first question. What's the goal of this? Is the goal of it to keep the grading work, blocked from the residents? Because if so, then we should need to make a decision.
Yeah.
If not, then it seems to me that it would make more sense to do it with the whole plan.
Yeah, usually we would want to see a limits of disturbance area on the plan, and that would typically include any preservation or, just kind of understanding how that was going to impact the residents. On this plan, I think this is the ones that didn't have a limit, right, Whitney? Right. Okay. Yeah, so it shows it up there. Did you happen to measure what that is right there? Aaron, do you mind? Do you know what that distance is from the farthest grading, like how close you guys are getting to the residences when you're grading?
Aaron Gray, Ardura, we're the civil engineers, 2160 Lakeside Center Way. I believe, and I wouldn't swear to this, I think that narrow part is about 5-ish feet, maybe. I don't remember the exact distance off the top of my head. We didn't have a dimension on there, but that approximate limits is generally around the majority of the property. I think it was, property itself was about 4 acres, and we had like 3.98 or something, I think, was shown as disturbed. So it was more or less the entire property.
So I'm just trying,
I would just say, if you go all the way up to the edge, the next meeting, when you guys bring the whole plan, you're gonna have the whole neighborhood here. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying, if there's disturbance all the way up to the edge, I can't imagine that those neighbors behind aren't gonna be in here at our throats. So back to Michelle's point of keeping some of the vegetation there, and I don't know the property itself as to how much you could do, but a time period where there's nothing there and those residents are looking directly into it, it's probably gonna cause some tough conversations. Just a thought.
So,
And that's fine. We'd love to talk to them. A couple of them have called me and we've had good conversations, but they're welcome to come and talk and contribute or whatever. But just to back up, this is a business/industrial park that's been there 20 years. And these lots have have grade to them. And so no one's been able to do anything with them. We had a unique situation to take advantage of these lots and fill up this park because there's so much demand down there. We have great, really neat companies that we're talking to that we just built. I was here last on Corridor Park at the end of this street, and we put Jupiter Entertainment in that new building. They're making all their television shows, their production studios in that building. We just put a Beehive in a 50,000 square foot building in this park. 3D printing for the Department of Defense. I mean, they are a wonderfully high technology company. These are the kind of companies that I think we want, and they want to be here. And you know, we're not wanting to do anything to cause anybody discomfort or anything else, but and we're happy to put the screening back you want. But you know, the reason we had to change the grading plan on the next site and on this site is because it was so expensive to develop these lots, it was cost prohibitive. We have someone who wants the dirt. So we're able to take a lot more and create a bigger flat area to accommodate more of these users. And this is just kind of a time-sensitive pocket of demand. So that's why we're trying to get this through and do it in a timely fashion. But it's gonna be a nice facility. It's going to be a nice project, and we're happy to do the trees to protect the neighbors. And if the neighbors want to come down and contribute, I'd love that. So.
okay. So I guess at this point, I'll entertain a motion. I'm not sure what that motion will be.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for a grading permit subject to the following conditions. Approval of a vegetative landscape buffer strip of 15 foot in width along the rear portion of the property line, meeting all applicable requirements of the Knox County Engineering and Public Works, and meeting all applicable requirements of Knox County zoning ordinance.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Please.
Just include a type A
Okay,
landscape buffer.
I will amend it to include type A landscape buffer.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, third item, Scott Smith, Green River Holdings, 10-B-23-TOG, or, is that right? My contacts are not working. So, can I get a staff report, please?
Sure. This is a request for a new grading plan on Corridor Park Boulevard. The project site consists of two parcels directly across from the northern terminus of Innovation Drive, and incidentally, they're next door to the parcel we just heard. The grading plan was previously approved by this board in April of 2023. Since then, the project has received a notice of violation from Knox County Codes for grading outside of the approved limits of disturbance. The majority of the site previously consisted of topography with less than 15% slope. There were some slopes with 15 to 25% grade and a small ridge with 25 to 40% in the middle of the site. The previous grading plan proposed to smooth the center of the site, create a steeper slope at the rear. And then again, we're kind of going into the same criteria. I don't want to reread it again, but it's just kind of talking about those same buffer criteria that's in the Ttcda guidelines. We have the same recommendation as prior, and the applicant has the same request. So so the original plans that came in had a pinch point of about 17 feet. Oh, actually, here's some slides for the street view. This is where you can see the grading. So that's the ridge where the residences are, then it comes down, slopes down into the flat part. So this is the plans that were previously approved. There's a pinch point up here of about 17 feet, and then it gets deeper, and then it kind of goes back up. That was previous
Can you
limits
turn
of
your-
non-disturbance. Oh, sorry,
It's okay.
keep doing that. Yeah, so here is the previous limits of non-disturbance, that dash line there. This over here is a pinch point of about 17 feet behind these two parcels. And then the new grading plan kind of has a straight, well, that's that same one. The new grading plan has a straight line that it kind of comes along behind these residences here. And I think that was from 5 to 12 feet. So there's as narrow as 5 feet in some places and as wide as 12 in the other. And so the previous one ended up being somewhere between 17 and 90. So this is a change from that. And so I don't want to rehash the same arguments, but we were making the same recommendation, and they have the same request as the previous slide.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for staff on this one?
Is the notice of violation the same one we just talked about? Or is it a second one?
It was a little bit different. So this one, they had a COA to grade, and then the grading went outside of those parameters. The neighbor called and I guess reported it, and then the county went out to inspect and found that the grading violated disapproval. And so I think that what's shown on the plans is how it's been graded, if I'm not mistaken. But that would be, I guess, more a question for the applicant.
Yeah, and well, I just wanted to know if it was the same or a second violation. Thank you.
All right. Applicant?
Taylor Forrester, 1111 North Shore Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. Here on behalf of the applicant, as noted in the staff report, certificate of appropriateness for a grading permit. We're asking, similar to the last one, that there be a landscape buffer 15 feet installed, and fine with the other conditions of meeting the applicable requirements of the engineering as well as all requirements of the Knox County ordinances. Again, these sites are side by side, same type of conditions at the back, same type of conditions of slope as the previous site. With that, we'd be asking that this commission approve or adopt, as they did on the previous one, the same requirements. And I turn it over to.
Okay, on this one, the real confusion on this came into the line of disturbance. It wasn't based on any ordinance or requirement or anything else. Aaron, our engineer, he can speak to this. I think he was asked to put a line on there showing the approximate areas of disturbance, and so he drew a line where he thought it would be. It wasn't anything that was required to have that distance. And when we started pushing up into that, the county thought that it was an overlay based in the zoning or the development in that business park. And it really wasn't. I tried to explain that it was a self-imposed line. And so we decided to refile this grading plan because we were going to grade more, we're going to take more dirt out, create a better site, and move that line or adjust it where we wanted it to be. Aaron can speak to that if you would like, but that's the reason for the confusion on that. So
I'm going to claim newbie stupid questions again.
no stupid
But
questions.
that line that was randomly drawn was how this board approved it. And so I guess I'm confused as to why it was just done before it came back here.
Explain. I'll let the engineer explain it.
Well, as far as the line itself, that's what I can speak to. So when we originally set out to grade the site, we had kind of a target elevation and a target quantity of material that was going to come out. So based on that target, was where the line just happened to wind up. And as they progressed, you heard him say they were wanting to push more back. So that was how the line pushed further back. But as far as how it got there in the first place, it was based on an original estimate of where things were going to wind up in terms of building and pad and site and that kind of stuff. So that's how it wound up there. And the request came from staff when we originally submitted to requested us to show the approximate limits, which is, so based on the plan that was submitted, it had the contour lines on there. So we literally just went around and, outlined where the limits was. So that's how the line wound up there. Is it was, at the time, it was truly what we had on the plan.
So on the old plan, it was somewhere between 5 and 7 feet, 17 feet wide. And what's the width now
It's
on the new plan?
now it's similar to the Data Lane property. It's up near the property line in the back. I don't know what the exact distance is,
Yeah,
but
I know. So it looks like it's right on the line. So how do you put, if it's only 5 feet wide in some sections? Again, my noviceness. How do you put 15 feet of buffer on 5 feet of land?
well, the buffer. This is out of my. The landscaping is definitely out of my expertise, but I would assume it would be similar to the other site where you're working down the hill and stacking trees up and down. They would be at different elevations based on that type A and the way they were situated down through there. So they would be kind of at alternating elevations, I'm assuming. So again, this is definitely not my. I have a brown thumb or a black thumb, so I apologize.
I do want to piggyback that question a little
Sure.
bit. Where we have approved something and then it's done differently, what happens there?
So I think, given the situation, I think that's what we're basically, we're approving a new plan as of today. If the motion state is, as Ryan on the previous matter,
So that doesn't really matter. I understand now. I think I'm caught up.
it's
We
this
just have to act like
this
is-
supersedes that,
We just act like this is brand new in a way. Okay.
essentially.
They've
Correct.
had their hands slapped by the camera.
Aaron, is the grading map I'm looking at here, is that the current condition or is that what future?
I think it would be future. I think the line that is the grading that's on there now tried to incorporate what they had done, the pictures that she showed.
Okay.
Okay. But it generally cleaned it up and put, because right now it's pretty jagged, so you can see we straightened out the slopes and things like that. But it was intended to be more of an accurate representation of not only what's there, but what's also needed in the future. And
Okay.
one of the other things I would also mention is, as far as what this plan is trying to do in terms of grading and what will eventually happen too, is it also opens up the opportunity in terms of elevation to eventually possibly connect to the Data Lane site. If that was to happen or needed to happen, depending on his client and what their needs were, by getting the elevations corrected and adjusted on this plan, it would more closely align to the elevations on the Data Lane site as well. So if he had a client that wanted multiple buildings over separate properties, it would also allow that opportunity to connect those if it needed.
And I would like to say one other thing about the hand slap thing. I don't know, that kind of, you got to remember, to get in front of this board, we had to file like a month and a half ago. There's quite a lead time. And to file then, it takes him 2 or 3 weeks to draw what we want to refile. So it's not like we can just run down here and say, hey, we want to do this. And we try to keep going, and I didn't feel like there was anything that we did that was out of line. The project's a good project, and it'll be nice, so.
And again, I'm so.
No.
Just recognize that I thought a violation from Knox County is kind of a slap on the hand, that you did something you shouldn't have done. Am I wrong?
I guess you could look at it that way, yeah.
Okay, just clarify.
All right. Any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for a grading permit, subject to 3 conditions. Installation of a vegetated buffer strip 15 foot in width along the rear portion of the property. I'm not going to get into the addresses. Using a type A landscape buffer, meeting all applicable requirements of Knox County Engineering and Public Works, and meeting the applicable requirements of Knox County zoning ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just no more notice of violations, okay?
I haven't been there today.
Well, I'm just saying, I understand that it takes some time, but sometimes we just have to exercise patience. So don't want to see it again.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, so next up on the list, we have the annual report, or I'm sorry, actually, we have the annual meeting. And I am actually going to turn it over to Michelle and let her take us through this portion.
Thanks, Kevin. So this is the annual voting in of officers or election of officers. So I will open up the floor for nominations for chair for next year.
I would like to nominate Kevin Matherly, please.
Oh. You better talk to Patrick.
Okay, so now I have to ask Kevin, do you consent to the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, Kevin Matherly has been nominated for the position of chair. Are there any further nominations? No? Okay.
I'd like to cease nominations.
Yes. Okay, so nominations are closed. Can I have a second for that? Second. Okay. And now we can vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Yes. And so now I'll open up the nominations for vice chair, which was previously Kevin, so we don't have anyone to take their same spot.
I would like to nominate Ryan Hickey.
Second.
Okay, have a nomination and a second. Ryan, do you accept the post
Sure.
nomination? Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. Congratulations. So the TTCDA also has a secretary, and that's something, a function that staff does. So if you all are fine with staff continuing to do that, I guess we would need a motion and a second for that as well.
I make a motion that staff take over or stay with the secretarial duties. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And now I'll turn it back over to our esteemed chair.
What do I have to do? I have to,
I guess you have to ask me to give that annual report. So I guess you're going to turn it right back over to me.
Michelle, could you please give us the annual report?
I'd be happy to. Okay, so you guys have these in your packets. So we basically report every year. So we have some of you guys that are new on the activity of the board the year prior. So this is fiscal year 2022 to 2023. And the fiscal year runs from July to June. So last year, there were a total of 11 board approvals for building permits, 15 signs, and 3 rezonings. And then on the next page, it kind of compares those to the previous 10 years. So the orange is the building. You can see we had a huge surge last year from 2021 to 22. That was way out of line with anything we'd seen prior. So this year is more in line with kind of what we saw circa 2015 to 16 from what you can see on those boards. So over on the chart. And looking at the sign permits, the green signs were very much down last year. So I think what we see is somewhat cyclical. We have people come in with shell buildings with no signs. And that's when you see a lot of building permits. And then the next year, there's fewer buildings, and then they come in for the signs for those same projects. So those numbers kind of tend to be a little bit opposite of each other. And then with rezonings, those are typically pretty low. We had 3 last year. That's, seems to be a little bit low, but not unusual, given the pattern of the last 10 years. So I'm looking at the square footage by building type. That's kind of broken out for you in chart form and in table form. And basically looking at it, the trend that we've seen maybe over the past 2 or 3 years is for some multifamily residential to be coming into this area, which really wasn't common prior to 2 or 3 years ago. And I think that we can kind of thank the demand for housing in general and also the business parks and things like that, providing employment centers for there to be a demand for some residential units in this area. Yeah, that's true, yeah. And so, so over the past few years, we've seen some of that. And this, because most of the projects that we see that come through here are single story. So you have, just one floor of ground floor area or square footage. And now all of a sudden, when you have multifamily, you have all these layers that really kind of distort what the square footage is approved. So maybe for next year, we kind of want to think about, instead of looking at the gross floor or square footage overall, we're looking at maybe building footprints instead. So it's kind of apples to apples, because this kind of distorts it so much that you can't really tell, over overall footprint, how that compares to years past. I do not. We'd have to go into there and into other reports and kind of look at those and do a different analysis.
It might be comforting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. But anyway, so you can see that, looking at the donut chart, the multifamily is the vast majority, but that's why. And we did also have some office warehouse, some institutional, those other uses, but again, those are smaller percentage. That's distorted. Same thing with the next page, the charts that are on there. Last year, we had over 1,042,665 square feet of approved square footage. And again, that's kind of taken in those multifamily projects. And then this year, it was 1,013,902. So that's basically a 200% increase in medium density housing from this year prior to 2020 to 2021. So kind of a lot going on in the area in general, even if you don't take in the consideration of multifamily being multi-layers, just the number of permits in general. So that's less than last year, but still higher than most of the other years. So we've seen a lot of activity on this board in the past couple of years, a higher number of cases each month overall. The next thing is the 2024 schedule of fees. We left the fees the same. They're not increasing, decreasing, didn't touch them. So we're proposing the application, the meeting schedule. And that is, again, this board always meets the Monday prior to the planning commission meeting. The planning commission meeting is always the second Thursday. So sometimes that means this board meets the first week of the month, and sometimes it's the second. It just really depends on what day of the month the first falls on. So instead of doing it the first or the second, we determine it by the Monday before the planning commission. And that's so that cases that come through here, sometimes they have a Ttcda component and a planning commission component, and that allows them to be heard concurrently. And we've got the applications, the deadlines, we redid that maybe it was last year or the year before, so that the deadlines are the same, the meeting weeks are the same, so it kind of helps to kind of get all that, people on the same page as they move through the process. So we didn't touch that this year. That's the same as what we've done. This year, we did move the October meeting up a week, as did the planning commission meeting. That's to account for fall break and the difficulty that we were having with getting quorums for boards and applicants being out of town for fall break and things like that. So the odd thing is that the October meeting actually falls on September 30th, but that's just where it is in the cycle. This is something that you guys need to vote on. So I'll have to turn that back over to Kevin to chair that. But then the final thing that's in here was a set of recommendation for your proposed amendments to the Ttcda administrative rules and procedures. So 2 months ago, I guess it was, we had a request to look into the postponement procedures. And we aligned those more closely with those of the planning commission. So we basically have the same procedure, just different timetable. So it's a week prior to the actual meeting date when an applicant can ask for a postponement and not have to have it voted on by this body. So it would be considered what's called an automatic postponement. It would just come to the meeting and be postponed. If it's past that, so if we're meeting on the first Monday, then that Monday prior, that's the cutoff point for that, and it's at 3:30 PM. So if they get in a request after that, then it becomes a part of this meeting's agenda that you all have to vote to postpone it. And so that's the difference there. And so that was written into the administrative rules and procedures. That's part of this packet. You can see there's a tracked changes version in there that makes it clear what all's been changed. And then there's a clean version that follows, so you can see cleanly how it will read. As I was looking at this section, I noticed that the same should be done for a denial of an application. The language before was very loose, didn't really have any timetable on when you could come back for denial. So essentially, if this body voted to deny an application, they could come back the following month, and then the following month again, and the following month again. You know, you'd see no end of it. And we actually did have that happen where an applicant was denied for a sign that didn't meet any of the qualifications. They missed their opportunity to appeal, and so they just decided to submit the same entire application. Again, failed to show up to the meeting to make their case, got denied again, and just so that they could appeal it to the planning commission. So it's just kind of setting clear parameters of what that denial application could look like. And again, the way that this body functions is so similar to the planning commission and how we conduct meetings and how we do denials. Like the entire procedure is largely the same as planning commission. So we opted to go with the same denial procedures that the planning commission uses. And so that, basically that means that they would, if if this body denies any application for rezoning, a use on review, special use, or one-year plan, that's probably needs to get amended again for the next month. That should say a rezoning or a site plan-based review. But under the planning commission, it's a use on review or special use or one-year plan amendment. Any of those kind of votes require a whole year before you can come back for denial. And so that's, that would be proposing the same thing for this body. But again, that's language I should have caught, so that's my bad. So if you guys are voting on this one, you'd have to amend that to say that you want to approve it based on the types of cases that for any Ttcda case, I guess, unless you wanted to exclude signs or something like that. So you could either list them all out, which is a sign plan, grading plan, building plan, sign plan, or any of those that you want to exclude. So my apologies for that.
Or can we just vote on it next month?
You could, yeah, and I could bring it back to you, corrected.
That'd be my suggestion.
Okay, that's fine.
Which also, could I ask you, could you possibly bring to the body a draft of standards for type A landscape screen for both 15-foot and 25-foot? So that now if we have a type A landscape screen, it's not just 15-foot, you have an option of 15 or 25.
The 15-foot is the county one, so I could bring that one. So are you saying you want me to develop a Ttcda version of that? Okay,
For a 25-foot, yes.
Okay.
And what that would look like,
okay,
please.
yes. I might ask you for assistance, because I'm not a
Sure.
landscape person, and it's not my wheelhouse, but we can.
Yes, Kim.
Thank you, Patrick. We love having you.
That's right. And I think that's a good idea. And I did, anyway, I'll get into it. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I guess y'all can vote to postpone that item, and then I'll turn
Okay.
it back over to Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, appreciate that. So I'll entertain a motion on the adoption of the schedule and fees for next year.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I will entertain a motion on item number 4, the adoption of the updated Ttcda administrative rules and procedures.
A motion to postpone for 30 days?
Oh, I have a motion,
Second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We got anything else?
That's it?
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.